Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is based on a powerful Hollywood movie story, explained in a simple and interesting way. This is not just a movie recap, it's a journey through emotions, struggle, and unforgettable moments. So relax, stay till the end, and enjoy this amazing story. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, 2001, Movie Review. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, also known as Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone in the United States, India, and the Philippines, is a 2001 fantasy film directed by Chris Columbus and written by Steve K. Loves, based on the 1997 novel by J.K. Rowling. It is the first installment in the Harry Potter film series, and stars Daniel Radcliffe as Harry Potter, with Rupert Grint as Ron Weasley, and Emma Watson as Hermione Granger. Its story follows Harry's first year at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry as he discovers that he is a famous wizard and begins his formal wizarding education. Warner Brothers Pictures bought the film rights to the book in 1999 for a reported £1 million, $1.65 million. Production began in the United Kingdom in 2000, with Columbus being chosen to helm the film from a short list of directors that included Steven Spielberg and Rob Reiner. Rowling insisted that the entire cast be British and Irish, with the three leads chosen in August 2000 following open casting calls. Filming took place at Leavesden Film Studios and historic buildings around the United Kingdom from September 2000 to March 2001. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone premiered at Odeon Leicester Square in London on November 4, 2001 and was released on November 16 in the United Kingdom and the United States. It became a critical and commercial success, grossing $974 million at the box office during its initial run and over $1 billion with subsequent re-releases, against a $125 million budget. It became the highest-grossing film of 2001 and the second highest-grossing film at the time. The film was nominated for several awards, including Academy Awards for Best Original Score, Best Art Direction and Best Costume Design. It was followed by 7 sequels, beginning with Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets in 2002 and ending with Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 in 2011. Then it went on to have a prequel series Fantastic Beasts in 2016. Orphaned as a baby, Harry Potter is entrusted to his only living relatives, the Dursley family that wasn't related to the wizardry world, by Professor Albus Dumbledore, Professor Minerva McGonagall, and keykeeper Rubeus Hagrid from Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. The Dursleys keep Harry unaware of magic until his 11th birthday approaches, because of their hatred to the wizardry world, when their home is flooded with letters addressed to Harry, informing him he has been accepted to study magic at Hogwarts. As the Dursleys intercept the letters, Hagrid is sent to fetch the boy. Harry subsequently purchases school supplies with Hagrid at Diagon Alley, where he learns he is celebrated for surviving the dark wizard Lord Voldemort, who seemingly perished after murdering Harry's parents and left him with only a lightning bolt-shaped scar. Lord Voldemort had killed Lily and James Potter because of a prophecy that was seen about Harry having something to do with his downfall. Harry journeys to Hogwarts aboard the Hogwarts Express, where he meets Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger. Upon arrival, the first-year students are sorted into 4 houses. Harry, Ron, and Hermione join Gryffindor, while the haughty Draco Malfoy goes to Slytherin, known for producing dark wizards. As they begin learning about magic and exploring Hogwarts, the 3 accidentally wander onto a forbidden corridor on the 3rd floor, guarded by a giant 3-headed dog named Fluffy. They subsequently question what it could be guarding. They would also question how one would acquire a 3-headed dog. While Harry and Ron become friends, Hermione's studious ways ostracize her from the other students. This is due to how focused she is on her schooling rather than making any friends. On Halloween, Ron insults her and she retreats to the girls' toilets. At the same time, a mountain troll is found loose in the school. Harry and Ron rescue her from the troll and, when the teachers find them, Hermione takes the blame by saying she went looking for the troll, affirming the three's friendship. At the same time, Harry notices potions Professor Severus Snape has sustained an injury. At his first flying lesson, Harry displays such impressive flying skills that McGonagall makes him seeker for the Gryffindor Quidditch team. During his first match, Ron and Hermione act when they see Snape appearing to jinx Harry's broomstick. Snape's actions lead Harry to suspect him of trying to get into the third-floor corridor, which Hagrid dismisses, unintentionally revealing Fluffy is guarding something known only to Dumbledore and Nicholas Flamel. Harry and Ron spend Christmas together at Hogwarts, where Harry receives a cloak of invisibility and discovers the Mirror of Erised, which displays one's deepest desire. When Hermione returns, she informs the boys that Nicholas Flamel is the creator of the Philosopher's Stone, which can grant users immortality, and determines that this is what is being kept on the third floor. When Harry later encounters someone in the forest surrounding the school feeding on a unicorn, which the centaur Firenze informs him can keep a person alive, Harry deduces that it was Voldemort and that Snape wants to use the Philosopher's Stone to revive him. When Dumbledore is summoned to London, the three suspect Snape will attempt to steal the stone and decide to stop him. They believed that he would use the stone to make sure that Voldemort would live forever as long as he had the stone. Sneaking onto the third floor, they get past Fluffy and face further defenses of a strangling plant, flying keys, and a giant, enchanted chessboard, which leaves Ron incapacitated. Hermione tends to him, leaving Harry alone to confront the intruder, which turns out to be timid Professor Quirrell, whom Snape had been investigating all year while protecting Harry. Harry is granted the stone by the final defense, the Mirror of Erised, by virtue of not desiring it. Quirrell reveals Voldemort's weakened form on the back of his head, and they attempt to persuade Harry to hand it over. When Harry refuses, Voldemort orders Quirrell to kill him, but Harry's touch incinerates Quirrell's body, from which Voldemort's soul escapes. Harry wakes up in the hospital wing, where Dumbledore explains that the stone has been destroyed, and that Harry has twice overcome Voldemort owing to his mother's sacrifice, which repels harmful magic through him. As the school year ends, Harry, Ron, Hermione, and Neville Longbottom earn house points for their heroism, enabling Gryffindor to win the House Cup despite Slytherin's lead. As the summer nears, Harry is happy to have found a real home at Hogwarts. In 1997, producer David Heyman searched for a children's book that could be adapted into a well-received film. He had planned to produce Diana Wynne Jones' novel The Ogre Downstairs, but his plans fell through. His assistant at Heyday Films then suggested Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, which she believed was a cool idea. Although originally not liking the title, Heyman read the novel and fell in love with it. After the publication of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets in 1998, Heyman pitched the novels to Warner Bros. Pictures, and in 1999, author J.K. Rowling sold the company the rights to the first 4 Harry Potter books for a reported £1 million. A demand Rowling made was for Heyman to keep the cast strictly British and Irish. The latter's case has Richard Harris as Albus Dumbledore and Fiona Shaw as Petunia Dursley, and not to cast foreign actors unless absolutely necessary, like casting of French and Eastern European actors in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, 2005, where characters from the book are specified as such. Rowling was hesitant to sell the rights because she didn't want to give them control over the rest of the story by selling the rights to the characters, which would have enabled Warner Bros. To make non-author-written sequels. Although Steven Spielberg initially negotiated to direct the film, he declined the offer. Spielberg reportedly wanted the adaptation to be an animated film produced by DreamWorks Animation that incorporated elements from subsequent books as well, with American actor Haley Joel Osment to provide Harry Potter's voice. Spielberg contended that, in his opinion, it was like shooting ducks in a barrel. It's just a slam dunk. It's just like withdrawing $1 billion and putting it into your personal bank accounts. There's no challenge. Rowling maintains that she had no role in choosing directors for the films and that anyone who thinks I could, or would, have vetoed him. Spielberg needs their quick quotes quill service. Heyman recalled that Spielberg decided to direct AI. Artificial Intelligence, 2001, instead. In a 2023 interview, Spielberg stated that he turned down the project so he could spend time with his family. After Spielberg left, talks began with other directors, including Chris Columbus, Jonathan Demme, David Fincher, Terry Gilliam, Mike Newell, who would later direct The Goblet of Fire, Alan Parker, Wolfgang Peterson, Rob Reiner, Yvonne Reitman, Tim Robbins, Brad Silberling, M. Night Shyamalan and Peter Weir. Shyamalan declined as he already working on Signs, 2002. Peterson and Reiner both pulled out of the running in March 2000, and the choice was narrowed down to Silberling, Columbus, Parker and Gilliam. Rowling's first choice director was Gilliam, but Warner Brothers chose Columbus, citing his work on other family films such as Home Alone, 1990, and Mrs. Doubtfire, 1993, as influences for their decision. Columbus had become a fan of the book series after his daughter persuaded him to read the first 3 books, leading him to call his agent to arrange a meeting at Warner Brothers to direct the film. When his agent told him that at least 25 other directors were eager to helm the project, Columbus requested his agent to secure his meeting to be the last one so he could give a lasting impression and be the studio's freshest person in their memory. During 2 weeks of waiting, Columbus wrote a 130-page director's version of the screenplay to explain his vision for the film's tone. The day of his meeting with Warner Brothers executives including Alan F. Horn, Columbus delivered an impassioned 45-minute talk and showed them his annotated script. Weeks later, the studio notified Columbus that he had got the job and sent him to Scotland to meet with Rowling and Heyman. Columbus pitched his vision of the film for 2 hours, stating that he wanted the Muggle scenes to be bleak and dreary but those set in the wizarding world to be steeped in color, mood, and detail. He took inspiration from David Lean's adaptations of Great Expectations, 1946, and Oliver Twist, 1948, wishing to use that sort of darkness, that sort of edge, that quality to the cinematography, while being further inspired by the color designs from Oliver, 1968, and The Godfather, 1972. Steve K. Loves was selected to write the screenplay. He described adapting the book as tough, as it did not lend itself to adaptation as well as the next 2 books. K. Loves often received synopses of books proposed as film adaptations from Warner Brothers, which he almost never read, but Harry Potter jumped out at him. He went out and bought the book, and became an instant fan of the series. When speaking to Warner Brothers, he stated that the film had to be British, and had to be true to the characters. K. Loves was nervous when he first met Rowling as he did not want her to think he was going to destroy her baby. Rowling admitted that she was really ready to hate this Steve K. Loves, but recalled her initial meeting with him. "The first time I met him, he said to me, 'You know who my favorite character is?' And I thought, you're gonna say Ron. I know you're gonna say Ron. But he said Hermione. And I just kind of melted." Rowling received a large amount of creative control, an arrangement that Columbus did not mind. Warner Brothers had initially planned to release the film over July 4, 2001 weekend, making for such a short production window that several proposed directors pulled themselves out of the running. Due to time constraints, the date was put back to November 16, 2001. To maintain the British authenticity of the films and keep them faithful to the books, Rowling demanded for an all-British and Irish cast. Susie Figgis was appointed as casting director, working with both Columbus and Rowling in auditioning the lead roles of Harry, Ron, and Hermione. Columbus' experience while filming Home Alone influenced the casting, and later became extra cautious after learning about Macaulay Culkin's family abuse. Open casting calls were held for the main 3 roles, with only British children being considered. The principal auditions took place in 3 parts, with those auditioning having to read a page from the novel, then to improvise a scene of the students' arrival at Hogwarts, and finally to read several pages from the script in front of Columbus. Scenes from Columbus' script for Young Sherlock Holmes, 1985, were also used in auditions. On July 11, 2000, Figgis left the production, complaining that Columbus did not consider any of the thousands of children they had auditioned worthy. She ended up quitting over disagreements with Columbus over who should play the titular character, as Columbus wanted to cast Americans for Harry and the other roles, with rumors that Columbus was thinking on casting Joel Osment or Jake Lloyd from Star Wars, Episode I, The Phantom Menace, 1999, to play Harry. By August 2000, Alan Rickman and Richard Harris were in final talks to play Severus Snape and Albus Dumbledore, respectively, and were confirmed later that month. Tim Roth was the original choice for Snape, but he turned it down for Planet of the Apes, 2001. Sean Connery and Christopher Lee were offered the role of Dumbledore, but both declined. Lee turned it down for The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, 2001. Patrick McGoohan was also offered the role, which he declined citing health reasons. On August 14, 2000, Rowling's favorites Maggie Smith and Robbie Coltrane were cast as Minerva McGonagall and Rubeus Hagrid. According to Figgis, Robin Williams was interested in playing the role of Hagrid, but was turned down for the role because of the strictly British and Irish actors only rule which Columbus was determined to maintain. On August 21, 2000, Daniel Radcliffe and newcomers Rupert Grint and Emma Watson were selected to play Harry Potter, Ron Weasley, and Hermione Granger, respectively. According to Columbus, Harry was the hardest role to cast. Hundreds of young stars auditioned for Harry, including Liam Aiken, Jamie Campbell Bower, who was later cast as a young Gellert Grindelwald in Deathly Hallows Part 1, Tom Felton, who also auditioned for Ron, and was later cast as Draco Malfoy, Nicholas Hoult, William Moseley, and Jack Whitehall. Aiken was reported as being a frontrunner for the role, having worked with Columbus on the film Stepmom, 1998. However, Rowling was firm on her British actors-only rule, and even called Columbus to confirm that Aiken would not be cast. Gabriel Thompson was also initially reported as having been given the role, though this would be proven untrue upon the casting of Radcliffe. Hattie Jones, who starred in the title role in Madeline, 1998, was considered for the role of Hermione Granger and had auditioned alongside Watson. She was later deemed outgrown. Katie B also auditioned for Hermione, with Thomas Brodie Sangster auditioning for the role of Ron. Freddie both had been due to audition for a role in the film, but opted instead to star in The Mummy Returns, 2001. In November 2000, Julie Walters and John Cleese joined the cast as Molly Weasley and Nearly Headless Nick, respectively. Rosie O'Donnell met with Columbus to express her interest in playing the role of Molly, but was, like Williams and Aiken, turned away over the British actors-only rule. David Thewlis auditioned for Quirinus Quirrell. He would later be cast as Remus Lupin in Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, 2004. Rowling herself was considered for Lily Evans, Harry's mother, but she turned down the role, so Geraldine Somerville was cast. Two British film industry officials requested that the film be shot in the United Kingdom, offering their assistance in securing filming locations, the use of Leavesden Film Studios, as well as changing the UK's child labour laws, adding a small number of working hours per week and making the timing of on-set classes more flexible. Warner Brothers accepted their proposal. Principal photography began on September 29, 2000 at Leavesden Film Studios. Filming at the North Yorkshire's Goathland Railway Station took place on October 2, 2000. Canterbury Cathedral and Scotland's Inverleith Castle were both touted as possible locations for Hogwarts. Canterbury rejected Warner Brothers' proposal due to concerns about the film's pagan theme. Alnwick Castle and Gloucester Cathedral were eventually selected as the principal locations for Hogwarts, with some scenes also being filmed at Harrow School. Other Hogwarts scenes were filmed in Durham Cathedral over a 2-week period. These included shots of the corridors and some classroom scenes. Oxford University's Divinity School served as the Hogwarts Hospital wing, and Duke Humfrey's Library, part of the Bodleian, was used as the Hogwarts Library. Filming for Privet Drive took place on Picket Post Close in Bracknell, Berkshire. Filming in the street took 2 days instead of the planned single day, so payments to the street's residents were correspondingly increased. For all the subsequent film scenes set in Privet Drive, filming took place on a constructed set in Leavesden Film Studios, which proved to be cheaper than filming on location. London's Australia House was selected as the location for Gringotts Wizarding Bank, while Christchurch, Oxford, was the location for the Hogwarts Trophy Room. London Zoo's Reptile House was used as the location for the scene in which Harry accidentally sets a snake on Dudley, with King's Cross Station also being used as the book specifies. Filming concluded on March 23, 2001, with final work being done in July 2001. Because the American title was different, all scenes that mention the Philosopher's Stone by name had to be shot twice, once with the actors saying philosophers and once with sorcerers. The children filmed for 4 hours and then did 3 hours of schoolwork. They developed a liking for fake facial injuries from the makeup staff. Radcliffe was initially meant to wear green contact lenses as his eyes are blue, and not green like Harry's, but the lenses gave Radcliffe extreme irritation. Upon consultation with Rowling, it was agreed that Harry could have blue eyes. Radcliffe said that the first time he put on the glasses it set off his allergies. Columbus said the film had a lot of cuts and was filmed with multiple cameras because he had trouble getting the young cast to stop smiling into the camera. The steam engine used in the film as the Hogwarts Express up until Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Part 2, was GWR 4900 Class 5972 Olton Hall, but it was originally not the first locomotive to be selected as the Hogwarts Express. To promote the books, the Southern Railway locomotive 34027 Taw Valley was repainted and renamed temporarily, but was rejected by director Chris Columbus as looking too modern for the film. The LMS Class 8F number 48151 had also been considered for the film. Design and special effects. Judiana Makovsky served as the costume designer. She redesigned the Quidditch robes, having initially planned to use those shown on the cover of the American book, but deemed them a mess. Instead, she dressed the Quidditch players in preppy sweaters, 19th-century fencing breeches and arm guards. 114 production designer Stuart Craig built the sets at Leavesden Studios, including Hogwarts Great Hall, basing it on many English cathedrals. Although originally asked to use an existing old street to film the Diagon Alley scenes, Craig decided to build his own set, comprising Tudor, Georgian and Queen Anne architecture. Columbus originally planned to use both animatronics and CGI animation to create the magical creatures, including Fluffy. Nick Dudman, who worked on Star Wars, Episode I The Phantom Menace, was given the task of creating the needed prosthetics, with Jim Henson's Creature Shop providing creature effects. John Coppinger stated that the magical creatures that needed to be created had to be designed multiple times. The film features nearly 600 special effects shots, involving numerous companies. Industrial Light and Magic created Lord Voldemort's face on the back of Quirrell, Rhythm and Hues animated Norbert, Hagrid's baby dragon, and Sony Pictures Imageworks produced the Quidditch scenes, as well as the effects for the Mountain Troll, with actor Michael Q. Schmidt serving as reference for the troll's body. James Horner was initially sought to compose the score, but declined the opportunity. Having previously collaborated with Columbus on the Home Alone films and Stepmom, John Williams was selected to compose the score in August 2000. Williams composed the score at his homes in Los Angeles and Tanglewood before recording it in London in September 2001. One of the main themes is entitled Hedwig's Theme. Williams retained it for his finished score as everyone seemed to like it, and it became a recurring theme throughout the series. Columbus repeatedly checked with Rowling to make sure he was getting minor details correct. K. Loves described the film as being really faithful to the book. He added dialogue, of which Rowling approved. One of the lines originally included had to be removed after Rowling told him that it would directly contradict an event in the then unreleased fifth Harry Potter novel Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Several minor characters were removed from the film version, most prominently Peeves the Poltergeist. Rick Mayall was cast, but his scenes were cut and never released. The book's first chapter, told from the viewpoint of Vernon and Petunia Dursley, is absent from the film. Harry and Draco's first encounter in Madame Malkin's robe shop and the midnight duel are not in the film. In the film, the responsibility of taking Norbert away is given to Dumbledore, while in the book, Harry and Hermione have to bring him by hand to Charlie Weasley's friends. This necessitated a change in the detention plotline. In the book, Filch catches Harry and Hermione leaving the astronomy tower and puts them in detention with Neville and Malfoy, while in the film, all three protagonists receive detention after Malfoy finds them in Hagrid's hut after hours. According to K-Loves, this was the one part of the book that Rowling felt easily could be changed. The Quidditch pitch is altered from a traditional stadium to an open field circled by spectator towers. The book's timeline is not enforced in the film. In the book, Harry's 11th birthday is in 1991. On the film set for 4 Privet Drive, Dudley's certificates from primary school bear the year 2001. The first teaser poster of the film was released on December 1, 2000. The first teaser trailer was released via satellite on March 2, 2001 and debuted in cinemas with the release of C-Spot Run. A video game based on the film was released on November 15, 2001 by Electronic Arts for several consoles. A port for the game, for the GameCube, PlayStation 2, and Xbox, was released in 2003. Mattel won the rights to produce toys based on the film, to be sold exclusively through Warner Bros. Stores. Hasbro also produced products, including confectionery products based on those from the series. Warner Bros. Signed a deal worth $150 million with Coca-Cola to promote the film, although some pegged the deal at $40 million, $50 million worldwide for the movie. LEGO produced a series of sets based on buildings and scenes from the film, as well as a LEGO Creator video game. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone had its world premiere at the Odeon Leicester Square in London on November 4, 2001, with the cinema arranged to resemble Hogwarts School. The film had previews in the United Kingdom on 1,137 screens at 491 theatres on 10 and November 11, 2001. It officially opened on November 16, 2001 on 1,168 screens at 507 theatres in the United Kingdom and Ireland, in 3,672 theatres in the United States and Canada. It was the widest release at the time in the United Kingdom and the United States. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone was first released on VHS and DVD on May 11, 2002 in the United Kingdom and May 28, 2002 in the United States. Between May and June 2002, the film sold 10 million copies, almost 60% of which were DVD sales. It would go on to make $19.1 million in rentals, surpassing The Fast and the Furious for having the largest DVD rentals. This record was surpassed by The Bourne Identity in January 2003. In December 2009, a 4-disc Ultimate Edition was released, with 7 minutes of deleted scenes added back in, the feature-length special Creating the World of Harry Potter Part 1, The Magic Begins, and a 48-page hardcover booklet. The extended version has a running time of about 159 minutes, which had previously been shown during certain television airings. The film was re-released on DVD as part of the 8-disc Harry Potter, the complete 8-film collection in November 2011, and on Blu-ray as part of the 31-disc Hogwarts collection in April 2014. It was released on UHD Blu-ray as part of the 16-disc Harry Potter, 8-film collection in November 2017. In the United Kingdom and Ireland, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone grossed a record single-day gross of £3.6 million during the first day of previews, beating Toy Story 2's record. It grossed a record £3.1 million for a Sunday, bringing its total to £6.7 million from the previews. It broke the record for the highest opening weekend ever, both including and excluding previews, making £16.3 million with and £9.6 million without previews, $13.8 million, setting a further record single-day gross on the Saturday with £3.99 million. It set another Sunday record with a gross of £3.6 million. It had a record second weekend of £8.4 million. It remained at number 1 in the UK for 5 weeks. The film went on to make £66.1 million in the UK alone, making it the country's second highest grossing film of all time, after Titanic, until it was surpassed by Mamma Mia. In the United States and Canada, it made $32.30 million on its opening day, breaking the single-day record previously held by Star Wars, Episode I: The Phantom Menace, 1999. On the second day of release, the film's gross increased to $33.50 million, breaking the record for biggest single day again. It made $90.30 million during its first weekend, breaking the record for highest opening weekend of all time that was previously held by The Lost World, Jurassic Park, 1997. It held the record until the following May when Spider-Man, 2002, made $114.80 million in its opening weekend. Plus, the film broke Batman Forever's record for having the largest opening weekend for a Warner Bros. Pictures film. It would hold this record for 2 years until it was surpassed by The Matrix Reloaded, 2003. Additionally, it shattered other opening records, surpassing Monsters, Inc. for having the biggest November opening weekend, Planet of the Apes for having the largest non-holiday opening weekend, the highest Friday gross and the biggest opening weekend of the year, The Mummy Returns for scoring the highest Saturday gross, Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, 1992, for having the highest opening weekend for a Chris Columbus film, and Mission Impossible 2, 2000, for having the largest number of screenings, playing at 3,672 theaters. In just 5 days, it became the fastest film to approach the $100 million mark. The film grossed $2.3 million in its first 2 days in Taiwan, giving it a worldwide opening weekend total of $107 million. The film held on to the number 1 spot at the US box office for 3 consecutive weekends before getting overtaken by Ocean's 11. The film also had the highest grossing 5-day, Wednesday-Sunday, Thanksgiving weekend record of $82.40 million, holding the title for 12 years until both The Hunger Games, Catching Fire, 2013, and Frozen, 2013, surpassed it with $110.10 million and $94 million respectively. By Christmas, it went on to become the highest grossing film of the year, dethroning Shrek. Similar results were achieved across the world. A week after opening in the United States, the film added 15 additional markets and set an opening week record in Germany, grossing $18.7 million. It also set opening records in Austria, Brazil, Denmark, Finland, the Netherlands, Norway, Sweden, and German-speaking Switzerland. In the following weekend, after expanding to 31 countries, the film set a record overseas weekend gross of $60.9 million, including record openings in Australia, Greece, Israel, Japan, $12.5 million, New Zealand, and Spain. It set another overseas weekend record with $62.3 million from 37 countries the following weekend, including record openings in France, Italy, and French-speaking Switzerland. The international opening weekend record would be held until it was given to Star Wars, Episode II: Attack of the Clones, 2002, a year later. During its theatrical run, the film earned $974 million at the worldwide box office, $317 million of that in the US and $657 million elsewhere, which made it the second highest grossing film in history at the time, as well as the year's highest grossing film. In addition, it surpassed Twister, 1996, to become the highest grossing Warner Bros. Film of all time. It is the second highest grossing Harry Potter film after Deathly Hallows Part 2. Box Office Mojo estimates that the film sold over 55.9 million tickets in the US and Canada. In August 2020, The Philosopher's Stone was re-released in several countries, including a 4K 3D restoration in China, where it earned $26.40 million, for a global $1.026 billion, making it the second film in the series to surpass the billion-dollar mark, after Deathly Hallows Part 2. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film has an approval rating of 80% based on 202 reviews, with an average rating of 7.1/10. The site's critical consensus reads, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone adapts its source material faithfully while condensing the novel's overstuffed narrative into an involving and often downright exciting big-screen magical caper. On Metacritic, the film has a weighted average score of 65 out of 100, based on 36 critics, indicating generally favorable reviews. Audiences surveyed by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of A on an A to F scale. Roger Ebert called Philosopher's Stone a classic, giving the film 4 out of 4 stars, and particularly praising the Quidditch scene's visual effects. Praise was echoed by both The Telegraph and Empire reviewers, with Alan Morrison of the latter naming it the film's standout sequence. Brian Linder of IGN also gave the film a positive review, but concluded that it isn't perfect, but for me it's a nice supplement to a book series that I love. Although criticizing the final half hour, Gene Aufmuth of Palo Alto Online stated that the film would enchant even the most cynical of moviegoers. USA Today reviewer Claudia Poog gave the film 3 out of 4 stars, especially praising the set design and Robbie Coltrane's portrayal of Hagrid, but criticized John Williams' music, stating the overly insistent score lacks subtlety and bludgeons us with crescendos, and concluded that ultimately many of the book's readers may wish for a more magical incarnation. The sets, design, cinematography, effects, and principal cast were all given praise from Kirk Honeycutt of The Hollywood Reporter, although he deemed John Williams' score a great clanging, banging music box that simply will not shut up. Todd McCarthy of Variety compared the film positively with Gone with the Wind and put, "The script is faithful, the actors are just right, the sets, costumes, makeup and effects match and sometimes exceed anything one could imagine." Jonathan Foreman of the New York Post recalled that the film was remarkably faithful to its literary counterpart as well as a consistently entertaining if overlong adaptation. Richard Corliss, of Time magazine, considered the film a by-the-numbers adaptation, criticizing the pace and the charisma-free lead actors. CNN's Paul Titara found that Columbus and K-Loves are so careful to avoid offending anyone by excising a passage from the book, the so-called narrative is more like a jamboree inside Rowling's head. Ed. Gonzalez of Slant magazine wished that the film had been directed by Tim Burton, finding the cinematography bland and muggy, and the majority of the film a solidly dull celebration of dribbling goo. Elvis Mitchell of the New York Times was highly negative about the film, comparing it to a theme park that's a few years past its prime. The rides clatter and groan with metal fatigue every time they take a curve. He also said it suffered from a lack of imagination and wooden characters, adding, "The Sorting Hat has more personality than anything else in the movie." Philosopher's Stone received 3 Academy Award nominations: Best Art Direction, Best Costume Design, and Best Original Score for John Williams. The film was also nominated for 7 BAFTA Awards: Best British Film, Best Supporting Actor for Robbie Coltrane, Best Costume Design, Best Production Design, Best Makeup and Hair, Best Sound, and Best Visual Effects. It won a Saturn Award for Best Costume, and was nominated for 8 more awards. It won other awards from the Casting Society of America and the Costume Designers Guild. It was nominated for the AFI Film Award for its special effects, and the Art Directors Guild Award for its production design. It received the Broadcast Film Critics Award for Best Family Film, and was nominated for Best Child Performance, for Daniel Radcliffe, and Best Composer. In 2005, the American Film Institute nominated the film for AFI's 100 Years of Film Scores. As far as Harry knows, his parents were killed in a car crash when he was an infant, and he's stuck with his aunt and uncle, Petunia and Vernon Disley. Like a modern Cinderella, Harry sleeps in a closet and waits on his relative's hand and foot while his pudgy cousin Dudley is spoiled rotten. But as Harry's 11th birthday approaches, all of that changes. A gentle giant named Rubeus Hagrid shows up to inform Harry that he is a wizard by birth and invite him to study at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. At Hogwarts, Harry finds much of what his pitiful life has lacked. Close friends, bits of his own family history, magical skills, recognition, and a starting position on the Quidditch team. Think airborne soccer, an honor unheard of for a first year. But he also gets a few things he didn't bargain for, including a mystery and a ferocious 3-headed dog named Fluffy. Most formidably, he finds he's the object of renewed hatred from the evil Voldemort, who killed his parents. Harry meets the challenge head-on and faces off with this villain so wicked other wizards won't even speak his name. Voldemort gets what's coming to him, but you can be sure he'll be back in the sequels. Two prominent teachers at Hogwarts, Albus Dumbledore and Minerva McGonagall, are some of the finest authority figures to grace a kids' movie in quite some time. Professor McGonagall is stern and a stickler for rules. But rather than scorning her, Harry and his friends like and respect her. Dumbledore proffers wise advice and teaches common sense. He becomes like a father to Harry, comforting him when he misses his parents and taking time to talk through his questions and problems. When Harry is being assigned to one of Hogwarts' 4 houses, the Sorting Hat assesses his character, then applauds him for having courage, talent, not a bad mind and a thirst to prove himself. During the course of the story, it becomes clear to Harry that just as Lucifer was once a high angel, these talents could just as easily have landed him in the malevolent Slytherin house as in the noble Gryffindor. His own human potential for going bad bothers Harry until Dumbledore reminds him that he asked not to be put in Slytherin and teaches him that choosing the good over the bad makes all the difference. The evil acts of dark-side wizards such as killing a unicorn for its life-giving blood are denounced. In addition, lines spoken by villains expose dark-side philosophy, which is then refuted when the scoundrels are defeated. For example, one of Voldemort's followers says to Harry, "There is no such thing as good and evil. There is only power and those too weak to seek it." Harry swiftly and strongly opposes both this villain and his sentiments. When Harry discovers that it wasn't a car crash that killed his parents, he also learns that his mother actually died saving his life. Dumbledore instructs him on the importance of sacrificial love, telling Harry, "Love leaves a mark that lives in your very skin." Harry, Ron, and Hermione go on an Indiana Jones-like adventure, solving puzzles and dodging obstacles to unravel their mystery and find the Sorcerer's Stone. One leg of the course is a life-sized chess game in which captured pieces get smashed by their opponents. As an accomplished chess player, Ron gets to call the shots, and in a heroic act, he sacrifices his knight, and gets injured in the process, in order to save Harry. Spiritual content. The big debate about Harry Potter, of course, is whether its magic is of a spiritual or mechanical nature. More on that follows, but for now, magical elements are listed here as spiritual content. Before he discovers he's a wizard, Harry accidentally dissolves the glass over a snake cage at the zoo. This begins to make sense to Harry when Hagrid comes to take him to Hogwarts. The giant asks, "Did you ever make things happen that you couldn't explain?" The light comes on for Harry. His mysterious power comes from being a wizard. Hagrid makes Dudley grow a pig's tail. Doors open Ali Baba style to a series of taps from Hagrid's pink umbrella, which also happens to shoot fire. Harry and friends get to the platform for the Hogwarts Express by walking through a brick wall in a London train station. On the train, Ron tries to put a spell on his pet rat to turn it yellow. Other spells are of similar sort, spoken in Latin and intended to make changes in the physical realm. Harry and his friends take classes in potions, the history of magic, defense against the dark arts, etc. Their school supplies include robes and magic wands which they purchase on a magical street called Diagon Alley. When Harry goes to pick out a wand, he finds that it is the wand that instead picks him. Wandmaker Mr. Ollivander tells Harry that the wand he was destined for is brother to the wand Voldemort used to kill Harry's parents and give him his scar. At Hogwarts, the ceiling in the Great Hall is bewitched to look like the night sky. Staircases move under the influence of permanent spells. The school celebrates Halloween with a huge banquet, but it also celebrates Christmas in the same way. The dormitories are supervised by silvery grey ghosts. The head of Harry's dormitory is nearly headless Nick, who died 500 years previously in a botched decapitation. Missing from the movie, and at no great loss, is the one class that, in the book, came closest to mentioning supernatural contact divination. Also missing is a particularly troublesome line in which Dumbledore says, "To the well-organized mind, death is just the next great adventure." All the villains in the Sorcerer's Stone are practitioners of the dark arts. Their spells come in the form of curses and are used to harm other wizards. Foremost on the dark side is Voldemort, who uses a death curse to kill Harry's parents and to try to kill Harry. Also very troubling is the overarching idea that Harry is rescued from a miserable life by a bunch of wizards and witches. Of course, there are two ways to see this. Viewers who bring to the movie a background in Christian fantasy may see it as somewhat similar to C.S. Lewis' Narnia, a magical world far more exciting and fitting for the human spirit than the plain physical world. On the other hand, there's the likely interpretation that Harry is being saved by witchcraft, a disturbing idea to say the least. The immediate emotional impact of film makes the concept even more dangerous, because passive thrill seekers won't necessarily ponder and process it as they might while reading a book. Uncle Vernon never hits Harry, but he treats him roughly at times. He also tries to shoot at Hagrid, but the giant bends the end of his shotgun. Scenes that flash back to the death of Harry's parents are short and discreet, showing only a flash of light and Harry's mom falling to the ground. Hagrid kicks down a door when he comes to retrieve Harry from the Dursleys. He then apologizes and puts it back in place. One student gets caught on a runaway broom, crashes into a building and falls, breaking his wrist. Ron accidentally gets hit in the nose with a broom handle. A huge digitally animated troll smashes up a school bathroom and tries to hurt Hermione. A wand up the nose, gross, distracts him and his own club eventually knocks him out. A Quidditch match turns ugly and Harry is nearly knocked from his flying broom. Ron, Harry, and Hermione get trapped in the clutches of a vining plant with a vicious will of its own. The chess scene is intense, with many shattering chess pieces. Ron gets forcefully knocked to the ground. Because watching film footage takes less time than reading pages, Harry's final battle scene is actually shorter in the movie than in the book. Thankfully missing is a lot of Voldemort's dialogue in which he repeatedly instructs a follower to kill Harry. Still, the scene is intense, and for young viewers, scary. Things look grim for Harry at first, until he discovers that his mother's love has placed a seal on him that makes it impossible for his enemy to touch him. Instead, physical contact causes his foe to be charred to a crisp. The evil wizard Voldemort leaves the building in a dramatic and somewhat frightening rush. There's a line about someone falling on his A. Ron once exclaims, "Bloody hell!" Also, 3 misuses of God's name and 1 use of DN. On several occasions, Hagrid talks about visiting a pub. He enters one and the bartender says, "The usual, Hagrid," to which Hagrid replies, "Not today. I'm on official Hogwarts business." One student tries to turn water to rum, but fails. Though it's arguably played down from the book, Harry and his friends sometimes break rules with impunity. For example, Harry is told not to fly on his broomstick, he does it anyway, albeit for noble purposes, and ends up being rewarded with a starting spot on the Quidditch team. Aside from the exceptions noted, Harry Potter the movie is quite faithful to Harry Potter the book, a smart move on the part of filmmakers, who knew any significant departure would quickly alienate the target audience. The masterfully made film offers virtually no surprises. That leaves us dealing with the same questions that have been lurking since the first copy of J.K. Rowling's book rolled off the press. Is it fantasy magic or occult magic? Does the distinction even matter? These questions are both difficult and worthwhile. Fantasy, not just make-believe, but a rich literary tradition with extensive principles and precedents, has made use of wizards and magic for centuries. Even Christian fantasy has employed good witches. Sometimes it has been as clear-cut as Lewis' Chronicles of Narnia, sometimes not. Christian fantasy fans contend that such tales have a powerful ability to convey truth and that real-world rules don't apply in Fantasyland. Well-respected Christian author Chuck Colson explains that Harry's magic is of an entirely different nature from real-world witchcraft. Harry and his friends cast spells, read crystal balls, and turn themselves into animals, but they don't make contact with the supernatural world. Similarly, Ren Walker, a practicing witch in Clearwater, FLA, and co-founder of the Witch's Voice, an umbrella group for witches and Wiccans worldwide, insists that Harry Potter could never be an instructional piece for real-life witchcraft. Spells tend to be more like prayers for most Wiccans and witches that practice it in the religious sense, says Walker. We don't use abracadabra. If somebody wanted to pick up the book and do the things in it, it wouldn't be witchcraft. Richard Baines, author of the book Harry Potter and the Bible, disagrees. While Rowling insists her stories are imaginary, she admits she has been studying witchcraft to make the books more accurate, Baines told Crosswalk.com, which reports that Rowling also claims a significant minority of the sorcery appearing in her books is material that was once believed in Britain. What she fails to mention, Baines says, is that the vast amount of the occult she borrows from historical sources still plays a role in modern witchcraft. Such debate within the Christian community, and outside of it, will continue to rage. But even if Harry Potter's magic isn't of the occult, it still carries with it serious dangers. First, Rowling's stories, unlike Lewis or Tolkien's, are neither a Christian allegory, nor do they subscribe to a consistent Christian worldview. And second, we live in a culture that glorifies and promotes witchcraft and the occult. No matter what the essence of Harry's magic, the effect of it is undoubtedly to raise curiosity about magic and wizardry. And any curiosity raised on this front presents a danger that the world will satisfy it with falsehood before the church or the family can satisfy it with truth. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone definitely raises those curiosities. That, accompanied by violent and scary scenes, a few mild profanities, and hints at moral relativism, should be enough to keep families from shouting hurrah for Harry. Watching the first Harry Potter film again, I find myself coming to the conclusion that Chris Columbus was the perfect director for this material. Yet, maybe he got weighed down in the second film, and it doesn't hold up as well as the rest of the run. It is the worst of the series to date. That was also the case with the book. What Columbus brought was the nuts and bolts and got the child actors to deliver enough to suggest that they could handle the rest of the franchise. On that he delivered. My review of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, Ultimate Edition after the jump. What Columbus did that was so important was that he broke in the cast. Though the kids range from being okay to pretty good, for the most part they are engaging, and though at this late date it's hard to separate them from their characters, they were well cast. Daniel Radcliffe is the spitting image of the book's covers, and he does a fine job with the role. Rupert Grint is probably the weakest link, but he manages his own, while it's weird how Emma Watson has both grown into the role and her looks. To be fair, they uglied her up a bit in the first film. The premise is that Harry Potter has lived among normal people all his life, muggles, and once he hits 11, he's invited to a private boarding school for wizards called Hogwarts. So much fiction that's followed has drawn much from this blueprint. Harry is, unbeknownst to him, the most famous wizard in the land because he defeated Voldemort, he who must not be named, who's the witch version of Hitler. But this is all news to Harry. In school he makes friends with Hermione Granger, Watson, and Ron Weasley, Grint, and finds an enemy in Draco Malfoy, Tom Felton. Oh, and there's the staff, with Richard Harris as Professor Albus Dumbledore, and Maggie Smith as Professor Minerva McGonagall, Robbie Coltrane as Hagrid, and Alan Rickman as Professor Snape. There's the new Professor of Dark Arts, here played by Ian Hart, and there's a mystery involving the Sorcerer's Stone, but that's a small part of the film. Instead, Columbus concerns himself with world building and getting the framework for the story down, so we get the school, the nearby forest, playing Quidditch, and all the things that would become familiar in the series, Gringotts, the paintings, the number of hidden rooms in Hogwarts, etc. etc. It's a fairly lazy film in that it just lets you hang out in the world and settle in, and it's leisurely at that as it runs around 2.5 hours. But, as the opening, the introduction to this world, it's a fine piece of relaxed filmmaking with competent enough children's performances. It was a ground setter, and the ground is now fairly solid. The Ultimate Edition Blu-ray belies the problem with collecting. This threatens to be the last word. Is it? Who knows? The Blu-ray set comes with 4 discs, including a digital copy. The first disc offers the film in the theatrical version, and the extended edition cut, which adds 7 minutes of cut scenes, running 158 minutes. Nothing all that exceptional was put into it, though. The theatrical cut comes with the in-movie experience, which offers comments from director Chris Columbus, storyboards, and still galleries. The film is presented in widescreen, 2.35:1, and in Dolby Digital 5.1 DTS HD, and the transfer is immaculate. Disc 2 offers an intro by Daniel Radcliffe, 2 minutes, from the set of the 7th film, and then the main addendum to the Blu-ray experience, creating the world of Harry Potter Part 1, The Magic Begins, 63 minutes. This behind-the-scene piece offers a retrospective look at how the franchise took shape with interviews with much of the cast and crew, some from period, many new to this set. Then there's a 2001 TV special, 9 minutes, 7 deleted scenes, 10 minutes, 3 trailers, and 15 TV spots, 8 minutes. Disc 3 replicates the Disc 2 from the original DVD release, where you can visit 3 of the featured stores in the film, get a guided tour of Hogwarts, interviews with producer David Heyman, director Chris Columbus, writer Steve Loves, and production designer Stuart Craig, 16 minutes, and other odds and ends. This set also comes with a collectible booklet, and 2 cards featuring 2 of the stars of the universe, in this case Potter and McGonagall. Likely there will be 16 cards when all is said and done. Will there be a cheaper box set? Is this a naked cash grab? If you haven't updated the first 2 to blue, this doesn't seem a bad way to go. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone has a lot of hype surrounding it, but the hype is somewhat deserved, because the book and its sequels have sold millions of copies. Even so, however, parents and children need to know the dangers that this cultural phenomenon poses. The story of Harry Potter begins with little Harry Potter's parents being killed by the evil wizard Voldemort. Voldemort tries to put a powerful curse on the baby Harry but fails because the baby apparently has some powerful natural magic of its own. Voldemort disappears, and Professor Dumbledore, played by Richard Harris, the headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, drops the baby at the house of Harry's non-magical aunt and uncle, Petunia and Vernon Dursley. 10 years later, after being teased and abused by the Dursleys and their little obnoxious boy Dudley, Harry receives a special invitation to attend Hogwarts. The nasty Mr. Dursley tries to stop Harry from going, but the big, hairy groundskeeper from Hogwarts, Hagrid, played marvelously by Robbie Coltrane, stops him and takes Harry away. Hagrid introduces Harry to the Goblin Bank where his parents kept their money. Harry gets some money and some school supplies, then he's off to the train at platform 9 3/4, which will take him to Hogwarts. Before Harry goes, however, Hagrid takes a mysterious small package out of one of the goblin vaults. At Hogwarts, Harry becomes friends with 2 other first-year children, Ron and Hermione. They are all assigned to the same house, Gryffindor, one of 4 dormitories that will compete for the House Cup based on points. The 3 children undergo a series of adventures, not the least of which is an encounter with a 12-foot troll. They disobey orders and find themselves exploring various parts of the labyrinth in Hogwarts. Meanwhile, Harry finds he has an aptitude for Quidditch, which is sort of a rugby-style game played on flying broomsticks. During Harry's first match, it looks as if one of the teachers at the school, the dark, mysterious Professor Snape, tries to knock Harry off his broomstick, a plot that Hermione foils. Eventually, Harry, Hermione and Ron discover where Hagrid and Professor Dumbledore have hidden the mysterious package from the Goblin Bank. It turns out to be the infamous Sorcerer's Stone, whose spell brings immortality and converts items into gold. This turns out to be just what the evil Voldemort needs to bring himself back to life in another body. Harry and his 2 friends suspect that Professor Snape is trying to steal the stone. When Dumbledore is suspiciously called away to London, Harry and his 2 friends try to get the stone before Snape does. The production values in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone are excellent and state-of-the-art. The movie almost perfectly depicts the fantasy elements from the book. The set designs in this movie are visual treats. The special effects are also terrific, especially a 12-foot troll that invades the school and the exciting Quidditch game. The three young actors portraying Harry, Ron, and Hermione do a wonderful job. Daniel Radcliffe fits the role of Harry like a glove. Director Chris Columbus creatively uses the boy's subtle ability to express emotions, which keeps viewers interested. Emma Watson as Hermione and Rupert Grint as Ron are also delightful. Among the adult actors, Richard Harris, Maggie Smith, John Hurt, and especially Alan Rickman as Dumbledore, Professor McGonagall, Mr. Ollivander, and Professor Snape are particularly noteworthy. The production problems with the movie are virtually the same problems with the book. Despite the care in which the fantasy elements and the characters are handled, the book and the movie have little sense of plotting. There are several digressions in the middle of the story, which take away from the plot involving Harry, the villain Voldemort and the Sorcerer's Stone. The story finally gets back on track toward the end, but by then, it's almost worn out its welcome. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone also suffers from the fact that we never really see much of the main villain, Voldemort, though there is a lot of talk regarding him. Of course, theologically and morally, the occult, pagan worldview of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone is abhorrent. When the occult magic fails, what does a witch or wizard do? To whom can they turn? Who's ultimately in charge? Parents should ask their children these and other questions, because occult magic represents an unhealthy, selfish desire to replace God and to reject the gospel of Jesus Christ in favor of a lifestyle that ultimately will lead to unhappiness and pain. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone also offers viewers a works theology, a form of elitism where those who are most successful at doing magic are the best. Witchcraft is a selfish, elitist form of Gnosticism, an evil theology of secret, esoteric knowledge. Mitigating this works theology are the movie's theme about love and sacrifice, its rejection of false immortality, and its warning about not getting lost in false dreams and desires. Regrettably, however, the movie's occult, pagan worldview also rewards the children for disobeying the school rules at Hogwarts and lying about it. Furthermore, the story gives a wink and a nod at the fact that no one can keep a secret among the witches and wizards because of all the gossip. Are these messages something you want to teach your children? We think not. Oh, I was positively aquiver with anticipation in the days leading up to the advanced screening of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone I attended. Like a kid waiting for Christmas morning, the day couldn't come soon enough. And now, Friday can't come soon enough, I'm going again on opening night. I'm glad I bought those tickets 2 weeks ago. I figure when I want to see a movie again right then, instantly, the moment it's over, that movie has done its job in entertaining me. So it's not the childlike sense of excitement about something as silly as a movie that I envy. I've certainly got childishness to spare. I plan on wearing my Quidditch jersey in Gryffindor colors on Friday night, dorkiness be damned. I envy kids the discovery they're about to make, about the power of movies to dominate the imagination, to air our secret fears and desires, to become cornerstones of our psyches. I was 8 when Star Wars was first released, and it warped my brain forever. Harry Potter is this generation's Luke Skywalker, and the Potters will be this generation's Star Wars saga. Sorcerer's Stone isn't great film any more than Star Wars is, but it's a great movie like Star Wars is. It's visually clever and sweetly old-fashioned and funny and sad and exciting and scary. Voldemort may be a cheesy special effect, but he's gonna give kids nightmares the way that Darth Vader did. Hell, his hissing gave me the heebie-jeebies. It's not for no good reason that J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter novels are preternaturally popular. They tell the same mythologically significant story as Star Wars, the child of noble birth raised in obscurity by relatives wishing to keep the secret of his magical powers from him, powers that fate him to one day destroy a great evil. Learning the truth about his heritage sends him on a journey of self-discovery that leads, ultimately, to that great destiny, but not without many adventures and friendships along the way. All the fundy Christians up in arms over Harry's witchy nature should realize that this stuff of legend applies not only to Odysseus and Beowulf and Luke Skywalker and Harry Potter but to Jesus Christ, too. It's the same story told anew, no reason to be afraid. The details of Harry's life are just that, mere details. Either you already know his life story as well as your own, Voldemort, Lily and James, the Dursleys, the cupboard under the stairs, or you don't need to, your local 8-year-old will fill you in as you wait on the popcorn line anyway. Either way, our brains are seemingly hardwired to resonate with his fable, which is why this new yet ancient tale works its magic, enthralls us in Harry's life and endears him to us. He is us, or what we secretly wish we could be, not perfect, but smart, brave, powerful, with a strong moral compass to guide that power, a power we discover after we've been whisked away from the ordinary world into the wondrous one we half suspected always existed. And that world, the one imaginative children and adults alike have come to love in Rowling's books, is what will make Sorcerer's Stone a tremendous box office success, and deservedly so, and what will leave fans of the books in a happy, lingering daze. The Leaky Cauldron, Diagon Alley, Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. All there on the screen, and so wonderfully realized. The little kid and the disillusioned adult in me both long to go there, to shop the Dickensian Diagon Alley, to drop in at Gringotts, to revert to Fanish raving and say that the goblins are awesome, to wear the Sorting Hat and beg not to be placed in Slytherin, to send an owl, to attend a Quidditch match, to revert to Fanish raving again and say that director Chris Columbus turns the seemingly impossible to film game into the Phantom Menace's pod race, fast and furious and dangerous, use the Force, Harry. Movies based on books should stand on their own. It's impossible for me, who is so in love with the books, to judge if this one does. It seemed to me that the first hour or so of the film moved along at rather chock-a-block pace, perhaps relying too much on the viewer's knowledge of the book to fill in the gaps. Probably, though, that's just because I knew what was missing and where it should have been. Sorcerer's Stone is quite contracted and condensed in places, some entire sequences gone, some characters severely reduced in scope. Columbus, Stepmom, Home Alone, has noted that if they'd included everything the movie would be 6 hours long. I don't quite understand why that's considered a problem. The 2.5 hours we got fly by, and I could have happily sat for another 2.5, at least. But the novel has been pared down with appropriate respect by screenwriter Steve K. Love's Wonder Boys. A huge part of what makes Sorcerer's Stone such a wonderful and winning adaptation is the casting, which could not be more perfect. Except for Mrs. Norris. She should be scrawny and mangy, not sleek and beautiful like she is here. She's a cat, by the way, for those two of you who haven't read the books. Daniel Radcliffe is absolutely delightful as Harry, innocent and knowing at the same time, his voice charmingly beginning to break in some scenes, a keen if inadvertent metaphor for a boy on the brink of amazing discoveries about himself and sudden changes in his life. Rupert Grint and Emma Watson, as Harry's sidekicks Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger, have nice comic timing for all their inexperience. And the adults in the cast are uniformly marvelous. Robbie Coltrane, from Hell, was apparently Rowling's first choice for Hagrid, the Hogwarts gamekeeper, and her instincts couldn't have been better. Huge, and huge-hearted, he steals his scenes. As does Alan Rickman, Galaxy Quest, as Professor Snape, who's got it in for Harry and lets him know it with constant and hilarious baleful glowering. John Cleese, Richard Harris, Ian Hart, John Hurt, Fiona Shaw, Maggie Smith, Julie Walters, Zoe Wanamaker. This is a who's who of British actors, and they are all clearly having a grand time. It's hard to imagine, but I suppose there will actually be moviegoers who won't get chills when Hagrid, as the film opens, flies in on his motorcycle with the baby Harry in his arms and goodbye tears in his eyes. There will be folks who sit in the dark and watch Harry walk through the wall between platforms 9 and 10 at King's Cross Station who won't feel a surge of wonder as he breaks through onto platform 9 3/4 and gets his first incredulous look at Hogwarts Express. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone is a red-blooded adventure movie, dripping with atmosphere, filled with the gruesome and the sublime, and surprisingly faithful to the novel. A lot of things could have gone wrong, and none of them have. Chris Columbus' movie is an enchanting classic that does full justice to a story that was a daunting challenge. The novel by J.K. Rowling was muscular and vivid, and the danger was that the movie would make things too cute and cuddly. It doesn't. Like an Indiana Jones for younger viewers, it tells a rip-roaring tale of supernatural adventure, where colorful and eccentric characters alternate with scary stuff like a three-headed dog, a pit of tendrils known as the Devil's Snare, and a two-faced immortal who drinks unicorn blood. Scary, yes, but not too scary, just scary enough. 3 high-spirited, clear-eyed kids populate the center of the movie. Daniel Radcliffe plays Harry Potter, he with the round glasses, and like all of the young characters he looks much as I imagined him, but a little older. He once played David Copperfield on the BBC, and whether Harry will be the hero of his own life in this story is much in doubt at the beginning. Deposited as a foundling on a suburban doorstep, Harry is raised by his aunt and uncle as a poor relation, then summoned by a blizzard of letters to become a student at Hogwarts School, an Oxbridge for magicians. Our first glimpse of Hogwarts sets the tone for the movie's special effects. Although computers can make anything look realistic, too much realism would be the wrong choice for Harry Potter, which is a story in which everything, including the sets and locations, should look a little made up. The school, rising on ominous Gothic battlements from a moonlit lake, looks about as real as Xanadu in Citizen Kane, and its corridors, cellars, and Great Hall, although in some cases making use of real buildings, continue the feeling of an atmospheric book illustration. At Hogwarts, Harry makes 2 friends and an enemy. The friends are Hermione Granger, Emma Watson, whose merry face and tangled curls give Harry nudges in the direction of lightening up a little, and Ron Weasley, Rupert Grint, all pluck, luck, and untamed talents. The enemy is Draco Malfoy, Tom Felton, who will do anything, and plenty besides, to be sure his house places first at the end of the year. The story you either already know, or do not want to know. What is good to know is that the adult cast, a who's who of British actors, play their roles more or less as if they believed them. There is a broad style of British acting, developed in Christmas pantomimes, which would have been fatal to this material. These actors know that, and dial down to just this side of too much. Watch Alan Rickman drawing out his words until they seem ready to snap, yet somehow staying in character. Maggie Smith, still in the prime of Miss Jean Brodie, is Professor Minerva McGonagall, who assigns newcomers like Harry to one of the school's 4 houses. Richard Harris is Headmaster Dumbledore, his beard so long that in an Edward Lear poem, birds would nest in it. Robbie Coltrane is the gamekeeper, Hagrid, who has a record of misbehavior and a way of saying very important things and then not believing that he said them. Computers are used, exuberantly, to create a plausible look in the gravity-defying action scenes. Readers of the book will wonder how the movie visualizes the crucial game of Quidditch. The game, like so much else in the movie, is more or less as I visualized it, and I was reminded of Stephen King's theory that writers practice a form of telepathy, placing ideas and images in the heads of their readers. The reason some movies don't look like their books may be that some producers don't read them. If Quidditch is a virtuoso sequence, there are other set pieces of almost equal wizardry. A chess game with life-size, deadly pieces. A room filled with flying keys. The pit of tendrils, already mentioned, and a dark forest where a loathsome creature threatens Harry but is scared away by a centaur. And the dark shadows of Hogwarts library, cellars, hidden passages, and dungeons, where an invisibility cloak can keep you out of sight but not out of trouble. During Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, I was pretty sure I was watching a classic, one that will be around for a long time, and make many generations of fans. It takes the time to be good. It doesn't hammer the audience with easy thrills, but cares to tell a story, and to create its characters carefully. Like The Wizard of Oz, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, Star Wars and E.T., it isn't just a movie but a world with its own magical rules. And some excellent Quidditch players. Out considering its source, and many criticisms levied at the film can simply be passed off as reviewers' unwillingness to see what a difficult job the filmmakers had in creating the rich world of the books. That being said, it would be amiss of me to try to score this as a film in its own right, because the books have such importance to me. So I can say without a shred of guilt or remorse that for me, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone is one of the worst examples of book-to-film transfer that it has ever been my misfortune to watch. Chris Columbus, famous for making children's classic Home Alone and Mrs. Doubtfire, seems to have never actually read the books, or he wouldn't have tried to make the film Hook, Part 2. Everything has the color turned up to 11 and it makes the surroundings seem too American, which hurts the very British material. The first book was always going to be the hardest to make because of the lack of action scenes available, which means we are forced to endure an overlong Quidditch match with some truly terrible special effects. It might as well have been an animated film in these portions. Not a good animated film, you understand, but nothing has even the vaguest sense of reality. The music is also terribly disappointing. John Williams has created some of the most impressive and memorable film scores of all time, but with the Potter franchise he seemed desperate to make it sound like the Ewok celebrations at the end of Return of Jedi throughout. It's too bombastic and loud to ground the story in the surroundings of a British boarding school. Sometimes less is more. The acting and casting is hit and miss. Ron, Snape, Alan Rickman, Hagrid, Robbie Coltrane, Draco Malfoy, Tom Felton, and Ollivander, John Hurt, should all be singled out for praise as they really capture the essences of their characters. It is just such a shame that Harry, Hermione, and Dumbledore, Richard Harris, seem to lack the ability to play the characters as described in the book. At least Richard Harris has a little twinkle in his eye, but still seems far too frail and not nearly as engaging as he should be. Watson spends most of the time overpronouncing every syllable and Radcliffe is barely passable as a human being. There are large portions of the film that require the main trio to explain exactly what is happening, which is a shame because they lack the skill to engage for such periods and it feels forced and overly expositional. The running length is also an issue and at 2 hours 42 minutes it seemed to drag, and some clever cutting would have allowed more of the backstory to creep in. The novels, which I so adore, have been bastardized to the extent that all that is recognizable is the names. Everyone involved should have spent less time worrying about how to make it epic and a little more time actually reading the books. Unless you've been living under a rock, you probably know that this year is a big one for Harry Potter fans. We've had the release of The Cursed Child play, which I will see and review in December, the first Fantastic Beasts film comes out in November, and 3 new ebooks being released on Pottermore in September. Most likely an expensive time for a big fan. Because of this, I thought I would take a look back at the Potter films. How do they shape up when looked at from both the perspective of a huge fan and a writer? 2001's Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, I refuse to call it Sorcerers, is an adaptation of a novel of the same name by J.K. Rowling. It was directed by Chris Columbus and follows the first year at a magical school of a highly unusual 11-year-old boy. The film starts off with a group of wizards depositing a baby on a doorstep. That baby grows up to be Harry, an unwanted Cinderella living with his obsessively ordinary aunt, uncle, and cousin. Strange letters for Harry start arriving by Owl, very not ordinary, and then a giant man, Hagrid, comes to pick Harry up. "You're a wizard, Harry," to take him to the magical world. Harry learns that he defeated the Dark Lord Voldemort when he was a baby and no one knows why he is strange even in the world of wizards. Then he makes it to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry where he finally has friends and people who care about him, struggles with schoolwork like any ordinary teenager, and uncovers some dark goings-on related to Voldemort. All in a year's work for this boy wizard. As adaptations go, Philosopher's Stone has an obsessive fan level of closeness to the source material. Many of the book's scenes, integral to the plot or not, are replicated in the film almost perfectly. The few alterations to scenes are largely unnoticeable and it seems like they were made for tension or to integrate some of the feeling/integration from missing scenes. An example is the scene at Ollivander's, where Harry gets his wand. In the film, Harry goes to the wand shop alone and is disturbed Ollivander alone, raising the questions about his parents later. In the book, Harry goes in accompanied by Hagrid, ever the proud pseudo-parent, and his solo adventure is in the robes shop. A tiny and almost unnoticeable alteration, like most in the film. The casting of this film is unreal. The portrayal of the characters are pretty much faultless for me. Robbie Coltrane's Hagrid, Maggie Smith's McGonagall, Richard Griffiths's Uncle Vernon. I could list many more. Their acting is just so on point for their characters. The young actors also do really well, especially Emma Watson as Hermione. They do pause too long on certain points and don't feel quite as natural as the adults, but still very impressive for their ages. My only problems with the casting tend to be aesthetic, like Dudley and Aunt Petunia not being blonde, Ron's nose being wrong, and Snape, although played by the magnificent late Alan Rickman, being way too old. Seriously, whether it's down to acting or direction, the character behaviors in Philosopher's Stone are just so close to the way I imagine them in the books. Philosopher's Stone is the first film in a franchise and, rather understandably, has to cram in a lot of information about the world and characters. However, because of the wonderful portrayals of the characters, there are no huge moments where the exposition feels clunky or out of place. Explanations about the world and characters are everywhere, but they are given out in such a natural manner by characters that it makes sense. Like Hagrid explaining Voldemort to Harry, Coltrane acts uncomfortable and a little frightened all through his dialogue, and it's just so in character that I don't even care that I'm being told things, and only care a little bit about the awkwardly placed flashback. Certain characters are the main sources of information, but only about things that make sense for them. Hermione with her random facts about Hogwarts, Ron with random parts of wizarding life, Hagrid with all the things he shouldn't have said. It's very well done. One of the biggest issues I have with Philosopher's Stone definitely comes from my writer's side and not the fan. The film is excessively long because of the languid pace taken. As a fan, I love the time the filmmakers have taken to get everything perfect. As a writer though, I have to point out that there are scenes that, though wonderful for capturing the world, are rather unnecessary or too long. Like the Quidditch sequences or some of the Christmas scenes. Realistically, they don't help move along the plot and therefore don't need to be there/be that long. The pacing throws off the film structure rather a lot. The inciting incident, which I would argue is the first moment Harry encounters Fluffy, doesn't happen until we're an hour into the film. Most scripts try to get the inciting incident in at around 20 minutes. Bit of a difference. Though the structure of Philosopher's Stone is thrown by the lethargic pacing, this allows for one of its greatest successes. I can feel my former scriptwriting lecturer bristling as I write this, but the spirit of the source material is just captured so perfectly. It's the lingering shots of the magical world, the excellent score, the soft glow of the lighting. Everything works so well to capture the feeling of the book. You do feel as if you've joined Harry in a new world, one that feels warm and comforting and just utterly magical. Rewatching it feels like coming home. As a Potter fan, Philosopher's Stone is one of the best adaptations in the series. The cast is right, it looks amazing, and you get so much of the world crammed into 2 hours. And I still think of it as a pretty big success from a writer's perspective. The exposition that comes with being the first in a franchise is well integrated and the dialogue feels natural. Though it is clear that the price paid for the fidelity to the source material was the pacing, there's enough action and wonderment to keep the audience enthralled. Chris Columbus's Philosopher's Stone is a great introduction to the world of Harry Potter. Are you one of the book's legions of fans? Rest assured, you'll enjoy the movie. Screenwriter Stephen K. Loves, Wonder Boys, and director Chris Columbus, Home Alone, Bicentennial Man, have taken no chances and no risks, simply transposing as much of Rowling's 300-plus page story as they can possibly fit into 2.5 hours of screen time. Quidditch, Severus Snape, Diagon Alley, Nearly Headless Nick, Wizard's Chess, the Invisibility Cloak, it's all here, more or less, very much as you probably imagined it. Purists will find some sins of omission, e.g., the absence of Peeves the Poltergeist, but few of commission, and in general will be able to enjoy the film on the same level that they have the book. More on this in a bit. However, parents who've read the books with their children should note that some scenes of menace can be more overwhelming on the big screen than on the printed page. This is not a movie for young children. Are you suspicious of or hostile to the book's treatment of magic and / or moral issues? You already know you aren't going to see the movie. Young Harry Potter is still a wizard in training, still attending Hogwarts School of Wizardry and Witchcraft. He still breaks a lot of rules, and Hermione still covers for him with a pointless lie when there was no reason to hide the truth. I have certain reservations myself about the magic in Harry Potter, which are discussed at length in my essay Harry Potter vs. Gandalf. However, it's at least possible to take a more sanguine view of the whole thing. The USC Office for Film and Broadcasting, in their review, declared, "Are you looking for some help making up your mind what to think about the Harry Potter phenomenon? Once again, see my essay Harry Potter vs. Gandalf. There's only so much you can do in a movie review. Do you want to know whether you'll like the film if you haven't read the books and don't know that much about them? Don't worry, knowing the books isn't a prerequisite. A more important question is whether you tend to like movies, and books, of this sort. Here are a few points of comparison: Matilda, Jumanji, The Witches, James and the Giant Peach, Willy Wonka. If you tend to like these kinds of movies, chances are you'll enjoy Harry Potter. You might have noticed that 4 of the above 5 titles stem from the mind of Roald Dahl. No name has been mentioned as often as Dahl's in characterizing Rowling's Harry Potter stories, which have the same wonky inventiveness, the same blend of the magical and the grotesque, the same unassuming underdog heroes beleaguered by assorted beastly prigs, bullies, and villains who invariably get their comeuppance with gleeful thoroughness. In this case, the hero is young Harry Potter, Daniel Radcliffe, an 11-year-old orphan living in Dickensian distress with an overbearing uncle, unbearable aunt, and bullying cousin. Like young Luke Skywalker living with his aunt and uncle on Tatooine, Harry has no idea of his exotic parentage or of the unique role he is destined to play in a great conflict between good and evil. When he finally learns who his parents were and how they died, he finds himself swept up into a hidden world of magic that looks a lot like the ordinary world as seen through a fractured looking glass. Like the fantasy espionage worlds of Spy Kids and Cats and Dogs, Harry Potter suggests that there's realms of colorful eye candy hidden behind deceptively mundane appearances, rows of magical shops back of an inconspicuous pub, a brightly colored train to a magical destination that departs from a railway platform you can only get to by walking right through a brick wall, and of course an Eden-esque boarding school on a sprawling Gothic campus where the curriculum includes flying on broomsticks and levitating feathers. Fans of the books will be gratified by a warm rush of recognition at every turn. From the growing anticipation as the mysterious invitations to Harry at the Dursleys begin their inexorable multiplication, to Robbie Coltrane's comforting performance as the genial giant Hagrid, to the dazzling Hogwarts grounds, to the exhilarating speed and excitement of Quidditch, the book's main pleasures have been expertly realized. The art direction, sets, and props are especially well done. Diagon Alley and Hogwarts seem almost as charmingly real as Hoggett Farm in Babe. The special effects, on the other hand, are a mixed bag. Some, like Three-Headed Fluffy, are convincing enough, but even children, more visually sophisticated than they used to be, will recognize that the menacing troll is as digital as Shrek. Strangely, uneven special effects mar even the central Quidditch match, which is the functional equivalent to the pod race in Phantom Menace, but with actual dramatic tension. Although much of the action in this scene is quite convincing, occasional shots look like they come from the era of Christopher Reeve's Superman movies, rather than the age of digital editing and bullet time photography. The characters have been well cast and are generally well acted. Among the adults, casting no-brainers include Coltrane as Hagrid, Alan Rickman as the oily Snape, Maggie Smith as the stern but benevolent witch Minerva McGonagall, and cruelly underused John Cleese as the ghost nearly headless Nick. Only Richard Harris makes a lackluster Hogwarts headmaster Albus Dumbledore, projecting little of Dumbledore's kindliness and unshakable air of confidence-inspiring command. A better choice might have been Richard Attenborough, doing a variation on his Kris Kringle from the 34th Street remake. One of the most delightful performances is a voiceover by a man named Leslie Phillips, not to be confused with the female singer who now goes by Sam, who speaks for the Sorting Hat. Ultimately, though, the movie rests on the shoulders of the child actors, especially Harry and his two best friends, red-headed Ron Weasley, Rupert Grint, and bookish, slightly priggish Hermione Granger, Emma Watson. Grint and Granger are naturals, embodying their supporting characters perfectly. Radcliffe, the only one of the three with previous acting experience, has the more difficult part, and does a fairly good job with it. If he isn't as interesting as his two friends, well, the same could be said for the book too, and of course he has plenty of sequels to grow as a character. Although the book's morally problematic themes of rule-breaking and lying are in evidence, so too are the morally redemptive themes of good versus evil, friendship and loyalty, courage, and the evil of snobbery and prejudice. Additionally, at least one of Harry's lowest points, morally speaking, has been deleted. We no longer see him dreading to be paired in class with nerdy, friendless Neville Longbottom, Matthew Lewis. Neville's still a nerd, but Harry no longer treats him like a pariah. Only Harry's nasty arch-rival Draco Malfoy, Tom Felton, turns up his nose at classmates of the wrong sort. Finally, a word about the issues of magic and the occult dealt with in my essay. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone is plainly a movie about fantasy magic of the sort found in The Wizard of Oz and Cinderella. While my essay discusses some of the reasons for regarding the Harry Potter books with moral concern, these concerns need not prevent parents from taking healthy, well-adjusted children who are grounded in their faith to see this movie. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone is not going to turn anyone on to wearing charms or crystals, practicing divination, or holding seances. There are other books, movies, and TV shows for which this is more of a concern, and some parents may feel that Harry Potter may be a stepping stone to truly offensive elements in pop culture, e.g., the witchcraft and amoral sexuality of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Philip Pullman's anti-religious fantasies. Yet it's also true that Harry Potter could be a part of a healthy reading/viewing diet including the likes of Tolkien and Lewis, Lloyd Alexander, Howard Pyle, George MacDonald, and so on. Judging this movie on its own merits, it's engaging fun, not for everyone perhaps, but nothing to worry most parents either. This film, directed by Chris Columbus, screenplay by Steve K. Loves, based on Harry Potter and the, produced by David Heyman, starring Daniel Radcliffe, cinematography John Seal, edited by Richard Francis Bruce, music by John Williams. Production companies Warner Brothers Pictures. Distributed by Warner Brothers Pictures. Release dates for November 2001. Running time 152 minutes. Countries United Kingdom, United States. Language English. Budget $125 million. Box office $1.026 billion. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more amazing movie stories. Thank you for watching.